saw that your title you put in was like LOL or ROI.
Yeah, you've got to have both, otherwise we're not going to get through the day, are we? When I was starting to think about what we're going to chat about today, I was trying to think what makes a difference for me when we're thinking about marketing, even as ourselves as marketers in the industry. And we're all people at the end of the day, aren't we? We put marketing into these little boxes. We talk about B2B marketing, we talk about B2C marketing, direct to consumer, and we give them all these labels. And actually, it's all just marketing to people, human to human, person to person, whatever you want to call it. And we all want to laugh. We all want to break up our day with some kind of fun meme, or we'll send each other something on Teams. It just helps make things memorable. Yeah. I don't know what you think. What was your first thought when we started talking about this topic?
I completely agree. I think it's exactly what you've said. Whether you're working in marketing or you're a procurement officer or you work in tech or you're a teenager, like the audience is still a human. Like we've all got emotions, distractions, short attention spans, like it doesn't really change. So just when we put like a work lanyard on doesn't mean that we stop being those human people that just want to laugh sometimes. And I think, like you said, laughter is like key. It's the pressure valve. Like, especially like today, I mean, it's like 3 p.m, right? And you get in a work slump and your brain is kind of done, but then your calendar is like you have 2-3 more hours worth of meetings. So if the content that a brand is creating makes like you smirk mid-scroll or in between meetings, you've already kind of won that. Even if it's just that 3 seconds of joy.
I know. Stopping the scroll is the thing. We're all in that habit. If you need a break, a screen break from what you're doing, you're on your phone, you're on social media, you're scrolling mindlessly. What makes you stop in the feed? What makes you stop scrolling? And often it will be things that you relate, of course it'll be things you relate to, things that you value, things that like jump out at you from your feed is going to stop. And whether that's a B2C company or a B2B company, you're not thinking that at the time.
I think especially as well, B2B people are kind of probably starving for it a little bit more, just because of the kind of thing that we're doing day in, day out, like sitting through endless pitch decks and lots of jargon. So I think, like you say, if someone just comes along with like a clever line or something like a genuinely funny visual, it kind of feels like a fresh breath of air in the day. I think we just kind of underestimate how effective humour can really be, like at every single stage of the sales cycle.
Yeah, and it was funny when we started thinking about this topic. I was like, I'm not the funniest person out here, to be honest. Am I the right person to be talking about comedy in B2B? He asked me to stand up and give you a joke. I'm going to fail miserably at that. But if you think about it from a human perspective, this is something we talk to our clients about all the time, human storytelling. All we really mean about that is like what makes complex things or what makes technical things make sense to real people. Humour is a really good way to like shortcut to that goal.
Yeah, I think so. I love that. I think it's the same as like making things that are boring or technical topics more accessible. Yeah. Like things like even cybersecurity, right? Or accounting software. Like if you can make that feel fun or even mildly, slightly entertaining, I feel like you've cracked it. Yeah. We don't necessarily need people to be super clever about it. Like a metaphor that's super well placed or like really dry humour, which I think we all enjoy, is kind of the best way to go into like complex topics. Yeah.
I mean, from a UK audience, Brits always have a bit of sarcasm, a bit of dry humour. It goes a long way, right?
Yeah.
Talking to B2B clients, brands, about and trying to push them towards human storytelling, away from their products, away from the I need leads, I need ROI on this. Of course, that's important. But actually, at that bigger play, that awareness play, you need the personality, you need a brand, you need some kind of connection with your audience. And we hear a lot that funny isn't professional. Funny isn't right for our company. But the funny thing is, when you speak to those companies, or when just off the record, you speak to them off the record, what does your business stand for? Describe your personality as a business. And they'll often say things like, we're really down to earth, we're really fun, we're really flexible, we don't take ourselves too seriously. They'll probably use the word human as well, because at the end of the day we all are. But that personality, when that personality doesn't then translate into where you're marketing yourselves externally, that's where there's this disconnect, and it can feel like a big gap to bridge. I think a lot of people will think humour in B2B is writing some posts with some emojis, using some emojis in your social content, or jumping on a trend that's going viral on TikTok, or using ChatGPT to create something because everybody is creating it. And that makes you fun, that makes you accessible, granted, but does it relate to your brand?
Yeah, so
I see these trends coming out and I think, where's the connection? Like, what's the link back? It doesn't have to be in your face, but there has to be some kind of reason to make that right for your brand, something to make it memorable. Otherwise, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be forgettable.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's kind of funny when you actually think about it, like you mentioned before about B2B versus B2C, because those labels that we've given ourselves they're meant to be something that's put there to help us kind of tailor our messaging, but somewhere along the line I think we kind of lost that, and they turned into like a cage of like, you can only do this if you're B2B, or this is your B2C. Like B2B has to be super dry, always corporate, and then B2C is like the cheeky and like colourful and you can have fun with it. But like you've said, at the end of the day they all do share the same audience, people, but again, you can't pick and pull something that's like a TikTok trend and always make it relevant. You can't just like throw in humor and assume that it's going to work. I think, I don't know, I guess things have different roles.
Definitely. And I was doing some digging around like B2B marketing campaigns or ad campaigns that have got it right or have done humor really well. I'm sure you were as well when you were kind of thinking about the do's and the don'ts, the rights and the wrongs, things that worked, things that flopped. And you can probably neatly categorise them into like the ways in which humour works for B2B quite nicely. Like the types of humour that work is not necessarily going to be the same humour that works for consumer, or can't be, as you were saying, can't be the same vibe as a consumer company could potentially get away with, purely because it doesn't reflect the brand or it doesn't feel right with that brand. I came across a couple that like made me chuckle. I did enjoy actually looking back at some old campaigns or remembering some of the old campaigns and thinking, oh, do you know what? I do remember that one. I was looking at some from Adobe, and there was one, this is like, makes me feel old, like 10 years old, I think. Back like over 10 years old. It was Adobe's Click Baby Click ad. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Did you see it? That was pure satire, and I think it works perfectly. And it was just, you see the business side of it with sales going through the roof and all the knock-on impact of an uptick in sales through looking at one piece of data like clicks. Like, oh, my clicks have gone up, my display ads are doing brilliantly, fly everything off the shelves, upscale distribution and all of this stuff, and it's actually just a baby like clicking continuously on a single display ad. I think it worked probably mostly, obviously their target audience is us as marketers. Don't just rely on one piece of data. We all feel that. Feel that. Like, completely. It's relatable.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be honest with it. I think we all do love specs and we love stats, but they are quite forgettable. Like you said, that one campaign, like that one, for example, even 10 years ago, makes you laugh. That's the one that you kind of bring up around kind of dinner or with your colleagues, or it like that type of humor really plants a memory in our head, and like especially in a industry that might be full of like half like not too interesting messaging as well.
Yeah, I know. They did another one that resonated with me as a parent. I think that's another thing, like especially in B2B tech, I think you'll see a lot of that where they're tapping into working parents, or a lot of brands do that just generally.
Yeah.
Like I think it was Adobe Acrobat. It was last year, I think, so not 10 years ago. Worrying that click baby click one is still really relevant today though. But it was like around own the awkward, and as this guy who leaves his laptop open and his kid comes over, smashes the laptop and changes his whole deck, and off he sends it, and full of mistakes because of his kids. And basically it's saying you can lock your documents in Adobe Acrobat. Like, you know, you don't have to have those awkward moments. Like that sort of thing. Things that you can relate to, that would stop you in the scroll.
Yeah, I really did love that one. I think the fact that they're able to lean into like the awkwardness and made that like a feature and not a flaw, kind of similar to the Slack 2014 or 2013 when they first launched the video they did, which was like a mockumentary style. I think there's a lot of power in doing ads in that way, or just general marketing, because it feels like disarming and makes like these huge brands seem a bit smaller, and I think that's a good thing, because it kind of says like, hey, we're not perfect and we're okay with that. And I think if it's something that your audience are always thinking about all the time, you may as well just say it first.
Yeah, I think the reason that Slack one works so well is because the audience are people that have probably sat and produced hundreds of customer like B2B testimonial videos in that exact style. They know it, they've been on the other side of the camera, and then to see it played back at them through a product that they either are or should be using, like Slack, is really nice, like really neatly done.
It does definitely show like the power of observation, and that it doesn't need to be like necessarily funny in the traditional sense, like making a joke. It just needs to be true, like which I think it is with the Slack one. It's like that kind of you get me moment, and like that's the thing that helps build trust with them as a brand.
I was about to say, none of these it's not slapstick comedy. None of these are like traditional like comedy in the sense that we go home and we sit and we watch like a stand-up comedian. It's not like that. But then in the same breath, I did dig out, and I do remember it. Lenovo a while back did this Users Happen campaign, and all of the things around that were, you could be a Jane in the office, you can be a Chad in the office, and you can put yourself in that situation. And that was a little bit more on that like more traditional like comedy side. It definitely made me laugh more than the others, but it's what you're trying to get out of it, isn't it? At the end of the day, you're not up here to get people rolling on the floor laughing. You're out here to get them to actually remember what they're doing. That Lenovo one as well, like I actually dug out some stats on it. It was like huge percentage lift in like the actual leads that they got from it, just purely because
it was funny.
Yeah, because it was
relatable.
Funny. Exactly.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's not like we're not writing a stand-up set. It's just the whole thing is just about connection.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be like super memey or like really, really loud.
Yeah.
It could just, like you say, be like clever analogies, metaphors, or relatable content. I think IBM used to do something similar as well, like in terms of they used to have like subtle punchlines that they would include in all of their technical webinars, like just enough to make somebody smile
like
at the end during the webinar. But like doesn't take away from like the whole thing that was being done. It kind of
lighten the mood.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if you're sitting through long webinars, you need a little respite at some point.
Definitely.
Why do people, aside from they think it's not professional, like why do people worry about humour in B2B?
There is definitely a risk that's associated with it. Like people worrying about kind of the comedy backfiring or being offensive. And I think when you're representing especially a big brand, there is a lot on the line. Humour does definitely carry risk. But I don't necessarily think that the risk is the humour itself. It's just more about lazy humour, like when it becomes too cringy or like tone deaf, or they haven't really read the room.
Yeah.
And I think that especially when there's humour done without empathy is when things can go really, really bad. Like the example I know that was one of the ones that you'd mentioned beforehand about Burger King's tweet fail in 2021 where they talked about women belonging in the kitchen. Like, they weren't reading the room with that. Like, when there's no empathy included in that, and you know that it's something that can create a very negative response towards the brand. I mean, not one that we should be doing.
And they're a consumer company. I think that, like we talked about, B2B being the serious lot, B2C being the fun lot, the ones that get a little bit more, are given a little bit more slack. But actually the consumer guys get it wrong a lot, or have done. There have been, like you say, that Burger King one.
Yeah.
And I think that probably feeds into the whole B2B fear, or the B2B thought around this isn't professional, because the consumer guys do get to go around and be a little bit more out there and open with their marketing or their comedy when they do it. But you do have to think sometimes, like, who was in the room when they thought that series of tweets was a good idea? Like, the message behind it, when you see the full tweets, you get it.
Yeah.
The execution, like, we're going to go zero. Because they had to take it down, they had to apologise. There was massive, like, negative sentiment towards their brand off the back of that. Like, the reputation, like you say, the reputational impact of getting it wrong sometimes will mean that people do nothing, don't do it in the first place. Fear, like, it's the age old, isn't it? Fear of doing something means fear paralysis.
Which they definitely shouldn't have. And it's like, kind of like you said, different humour means
to different
things
people,
to other people in different roles. So like, what might be funny to like an overwhelmed HR manager might not be the same thing that like a CFO would read. Like, that nuance in there matters, and I think that is what people maybe fear, that it might not land. But we just need to make sure that we're just creating, and all the humour that we do create, like a mirror to what our audience is kind of already living.
I was about to say the same thing then.
Yeah.
We often sound like a broken record in a lot of conversations with our clients.
Yeah.
And we'll often hear ourselves saying, like, who are your audience? Know your audience. Let's do some audience analysis, because we say it for good reason, to make sure that any content, whether it's funny, whether it's straight down the line, you got to know the audience that it's going to make something impactful, to make someone read it, to watch it, to stop scrolling for it. You have to know the audience. And I think it comes down to that. It sounds simple. It sounds obvious.
Always.
Know your audience, because as you said, personas, humour will land differently with different personas, different jobs, different seniorities. Humour will land differently in different countries, different regions, and it cannot be the whole take one, copy paste to a new region approach, because that is absolutely when you'll see it backfire, because it's just not going to translate.
Exactly.
Much like other
we all know
content.
that British humour is very different to
Yeah, very true. It is, and that goes into the idea of like testing the content before you actually run with it.
For sure.
Like, you do often, like I say, you think like, who approved that to go out? Someone did. There was a good idea to somebody or a team of people at a time, but it did not land in the same way because maybe they didn't have the larger context of what was going on, or maybe it was a misplaced piece of content or a misplaced joke at the wrong time. There's loads of nuances that you just have to be aware.
Yeah, there is the self-awareness part of it, and then also on top of that, it's that brands that decide they want to be funny, sometimes the thing that they do wrong is that they just go straight into it. So like a B2B brand might have like tons of corporate content all over their LinkedIn or all over their Instagram or wherever it may be, and then suddenly they decide they want to be funny, and then they throw in a funny post, and it doesn't really work. Like, that doesn't mean that like you can't evolve your voice, like, just because that's not your voice right now, but the humor should feel like it's always like you said, there's a testing process. It should be a natural stretch. You don't just like straight away jump into someone else's shoes and try to be something else because everyone else is doing that.
Yeah, exactly. The risk of doing it going straight into it and making a sharp change in your external comms is going to be that it's not going to strengthen your brand.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what you're trying to do, trying
Yeah.
to strengthen your brand. It's going to dilute it at the end of the day. It's going to, if you have the two married up together, if you have your brand, your audience, and your external comms, your content or your humour married up together, it's going to feel more natural, as you say, and it's going to be more memorable. Because if you go back right to the beginning of what we were saying, why do it? Why be funny as a B2B company? Because you're trying to be memorable. Because you want to build a connection with your audience on a level deeper than a business relationship. Because ultimately that's what we all want.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing like you've just mentioned. If you're not laughing, you're not connecting. And if you're not connecting, then like the conversion can't really happen at the end of it, which is what we all essentially want to happen.
Yeah.
Because I guess...
For a second, I thought you were going to say if you're not laughing, we're crying. Because that's also true sometimes.
But like all of the like what you'd say is like a rational business decision, like we make all of them mostly based off like emotional decision. Some people may feel that it's like a risky thing to do something humorous, but I think that the ones that do like embrace and lean into their own personality are the ones that feel more human as a brand, and then they're feel much more trustworthy, and you know they're going to sell more if they feel more trustworthy.
Yeah, we've seen it. Like the amount of leads that Lenovo thing brought through, and the quality of those leads as well. It wasn't just a massive spike in unqualified leads that came through. It was the lead score quality went up as well, because they had clearly thought through their target audience.
Yes.
And it landed spot on with the people that would buy their tech, their devices, their laptops, either for their businesses or for themselves. It was just spot on because people could see themselves in it, and that's what made the huge difference for them. And it's what set them apart from any other competitor that was doing marketing at that time. No other, they generated that spike through a very well thought through campaign.
And that's it as well, right? Is that they thought it through, they knew their audience, which is what we go back to that first point, that like humour's not just like a free fall that you can jump on. It is something that takes a long time to craft, and when it's thoughtful, like the Lenovo example, like audience first and aligned to your brand voice, that's when it works well. But then when it's like rushed or like quickly recycle a piece of content, that's when the brand damage happens. That's where the risk comes in. Like, know the risks. Like, it's always good to know risks when you're doing stuff like this, but don't let that kill your creativity along the way. Nice,
I like that. That's a nugget of advice right there. That's brilliant. The other thing I was thinking of, we were chatting about a MailChimp campaign from a while back, and the other way to do humour that I think you see a lot, consumer and B2B, is the like gentle picking fun at yourselves, not taking yourselves too seriously, because that automatically lowers that barrier. And I was looking at this MailChimp campaign that was not in what they didn't go out there to create a funny campaign. They went out there to create a series of radio ads of their users, or actually I think it was not even users, it was people on the street just saying MailChimp. MailChimp. That was the brief, and then they were pulling it together into a radio ad. And a couple of people couldn't pronounce it or didn't pronounce it correctly, and from there the spontaneity turned into a campaign around all these. They launched, I think, 7, 8 or 9 fake products that all sounded a little bit like MailChimp, but were not MailChimp. They were fake kind of brands in their own way. I think one of them was Fail Chips, which was like bags of crisps that were like pre-crushed.
Yeah.
I mean, who wants one of those? Like mail shrimp, that sort of stuff. And each of them had their own landing page, ended up with their own landing page. So when people were served these ads for like mail shrimp, they're like, what is this? Got to go on this landing page, and they're like, actually, it's MailChimp. It was a good way, like, taking that it's like the spontaneity of comedy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being open to jump on those spontaneous moments, even if they haven't been thought through in your boardroom and they've actually just come on the fly. I think that I loved that one because it landed really well, and it was picking fun at yourselves. It wasn't anything else.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, like earlier on in the conversation about how being awkward and like leaning into those things is like not a flaw.
Yeah.
It is a feature. Like I think there is something really charming about a brand like MailChimp that doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
self-deprecating humor, like it does
Yeah.
work because it does literally humanize the whole brand itself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the goal at the end of the day, isn't it? People buy from people, and if you're coming across as a human, like a faceless brand, you're going to sell less than a competitor that actually has a personality or a brand face that they're actively putting out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think brand like MailChimp, like the one you went through, I mean, those brands are saying that we see the same things you see and like we're laughing right there with you. And I think that's where the really like brand love, like that's where it starts.
Yeah. It gets, like we said, gets us through the day.
Yeah.
A bit of a laugh here and there gets us through.
Yeah. So I guess like as like a wrap up thought, like what advice would you give to a company if they said like, how can I actually do B2B humor without getting fired?
Without getting fired. I don't leave it to an intern. No, I don't know if I can say that. Actually, in some ways, that is also very like good. Someone that's actually a little bit more in touch with in touch with your target audience or the trends that are going on, if that's the way you're going. But I think the main piece of advice, what I would say, know your purpose. What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't do anything without going out there and with a bit of a plan. Like, I want to achieve larger brand awareness. Okay, so who's the audience that you need to reach here? And really understand what things that influence that person, their values, their situation, their location. No, it comes back to what we were saying. Know your audience, and then find the moments at which your brand and that audience, their values cross over, because that little Venn diagram, that bit in the middle, will be the bit where you will probably be able to create the most memorable, most relatable content, whether it's super funny or not funny, that lands with those people.
And then test those waters, like you said before. Like, don't go all into a campaign if you've never tested that tone. Like, try some social posts first. Like, see what lands and kind of move from there. I also think, going back to like the thing we said at the very beginning of this call, I probably wouldn't call myself a funny person. You probably wouldn't call yourself a funny person. That is also something that's important in this. Like, hire funny people, because like
leave it to the funny guys.
Like, not everybody has got humor, and I think that's totally okay. That's why like agencies like us exist, because we have those people that can help with that. Like, I think my biggest advice, like if you're trying to think about humor, is like take the last thing that your brand publish and like really ask yourself, like, what would this look like if I tried to add some personality to it, or actually try to make someone smile at it instead of just maybe get a bit
consume
of it there and like just skim read it. Like, what would make them stop and smile?
Yeah,